hear what I was playing, Elaine?
I didn't think it polite to listen, sir.
Oh, I'm sorry for that. For your sake. I don't play accurately. Anyone can play accurately. I play with wonderful expression. As far as the piano is concerned, sentiment is my forte. I keep signs for life.
Yes, sir.
And speaking of the signs for life, do you have the cucumber sandwiches cut for Lady Bracknell?
Yes. Sir?
By the way, then, I see from your book that on Thursday night when Lord Shawman and Mr Worthing dined with me, 8 bottles of champagne are doubtless being consumed.
Yes, sir. 8 bottles and a pint.
Tell me, Lane, why is it that in a bachelor's establishment, the servants invariably drink all of the champagne? I ask merely for information.
I attribute it merely to the superior quality of the wine, sir. I have often observed in married households, the champagne is rarely the first-rate brand.
Good heavens, is marriage so demoralizing as all that?
I believe it is a pleasant state, sir. I have very little experience with it myself. Up to the present, I've only been married once, but that was a misunderstanding between myself and a young person.
You don't know that I much care for your family life, Lane?
No, sir. It is not a very interesting subject. I never think of it myself.
Thank you, Lane. That will do. Lane's views on marriage seem somewhat lax. Really, if the lower orders don't set us a good example, what on earth is the use of them? We seem to be, as a class, to have absolutely no sense of moral responsibility.
Mr Earnest Worthing.
How are you, my dear Ernest? What brings you up from town?
Oh, pleasure. Pleasure. What else should bring one anyway? Eating as usual, I see, Algie.
I believe it is customary in society to take some slight refreshment at 5 o'clock. Where have you been since last Thursday?
In the country.
What on earth do you do there?
When one is in town, one amuses oneself. When one is in the country, one amuses other people. It is excessively boring.
Who are these people that you amuse?
Oh, neighbours.
Neighbours. Got nice neighbours in your part of Shropshire.
Perfectly horrid. I never speak to one of them.
How immensely you must amuse them. By the way, Shropshire is your county, is it not?
Hey, Shropshire? Oh yes, of course. Hello. Why all these cups? Why cucumber sandwiches? Why such reckless extravagance in one so young? Who is coming to tea?
Nearly Aunt Augusta and Gwendolyn.
How perfectly delightful.
Yes, that is all very well, but I'm afraid Aunt Augusta won't quite approve of your being here.
May I ask why?
My dear fellow, the way that you flirt with Gwendolyn is perfectly disgraceful. It's almost about as bad as the way that Gwendolyn flirts with you.
I am in love with Gwendolyn. I've come up to town expressly to propose to her.
I thought you had come up for pleasure. I had business.
How utterly unromantic you are.
There is nothing romantic about proposing. It is very romantic to be in love, but there is nothing romantic about a definite proposal. Why, one may be accepted. One usually is, I believe. Then all the excitement is over. The very essence of romance is uncertainty. If ever I get married, I'll certainly try to forget the fact.
I have no doubt for my bad dear Algie. The divorce court was specially invented for people whose memories are so curiously constituted.
Oh, there is no use speculating on the subject. Divorces are made in heaven. Do not touch the cucumber sandwiches. They are made especially for Aunt Augusta.
Well, you haven't eaten them this entire time.
That's a very different matter. She is my aunt. Have some bread and butter instead. The bread and butter is for Gwendolyn. Gwendolyn is devoted to bread and butter.
And very good bread and butter it is too.
Well, you need not eat as if you were going to eat at all. You act as if you were married to her already. You are not married to her already, and I don't think you ever will be.
Why don't you say that?
Well, in the first place, girls are never married men they flirt with. Girls don't think it right.
Oh, that's nonsense.
It isn't. It is a great truth. It accounts for the extraordinary number of bachelors one sees all over the place. And in the second place, I don't give my consent.
Your consent?
But my dear fellow, Gwendolyn is my first cousin, and before I allow you to marry her, you must first clear up the whole question of Cecily. Name!
Cecily? What on earth do you mean? What do you mean, Auntie, by Cecily? I don't know any of the name of Cecily.
Bring me the cigarette case Mr. Worthing left in the smoking room last time he dined here.
Yes, sir.
Do you mean to say you've had my cigarette case this entire time? Now, Mr. Goodness you would let me know. I've been rather frantic letters to Scotland Yard about it. It was very nearly offering a large reward.
Well, I really wish you would offer one. I have to be more than usually hard up.
There's no good offering a reward now that the thing is found.
Well, I think that is rather mean of you, Ernest, I must say. However, now that I look at the inscription inside, I see that the thing isn't yours after all.
Of course it's mine. You've seen it with me 100 times. And you have no right whatsoever to read what's written on the inside. It's a very ungentlemanly thing to read a private cigarette case.
It is absurd to have a hard and fast rule about what one should read and what one shouldn't read. More than half of modern culture depends on what one shouldn't read.
I'm well aware of that. I don't propose to discuss modern culture. It isn't the sort of thing one talks on in private. I simply want my cigarette case back.
Yes, but this isn't your cigarette case. This cigarette case is a present from someone of the name of Cecily. And you said you didn't know anyone of that name?
Well, if you want to know, Cecily happens to be my aunt.
Your aunt?
Yes, charming old lady she is too. Just give it back to me, Algie.
Yes, but what if she is your aunt who lives at 212? Does she call herself Little Cecily? From Little Cecily with her fondest love.
My dear fellow, what on earth is there in that? There's some aunt at all. Some aunt are not all. Surely that is a matter an aunt should be able to decide for herself. You seem to think that all aunts should be like your aunt. That is absurd. For heaven's sake, Algie, give me back my cigarette case.
Yes, but why, if she is your aunt, does she call you her uncle? From Little Cecily with her fondest love to her dear Uncle Jack. There is no objection, I admit, to an aunt being a small aunt. But why an aunt, no matter what her size, may call her own nephew her uncle, I can't quite make it out. It is absurd. Besides, your name isn't Jack at all. It's Ernest.
It isn't Ernest. It's Jack.
You've always told me it was Ernest. I've introduced you to everyone as Ernest. You answer to the name of Ernest. You look as if your name was Ernest. You are the most earnest-looking person I ever saw in my life. It is absurd you say your name isn't Ernest. It's on your cards. Here is one of them. Mr. Earnest Worthing, E4, the Albany. I'll keep this as proof that your name is Ernest, if ever you try to deny it to me, or to Gwendolyn, or to anyone else.
Well, my name is Ernest in town and Jack in the country. And the cigarette case was given to me in the country.
Yes, but that does not account for why your aunt calls you her uncle. Come on, boy. You better have the whole thing out at once. Tell me the whole thing. I might say quite candidly that I've always suspected you of being confirmed and stupid Bunburyist, and I'm quite sure of it now.
Bunburyist? What on earth do you mean by Bunburyist?
I'll reveal to you the meaning of that incomparable expression as soon as you reveal to me why you are Ernest in town and Jack in the country.
I'll produce my cigarette case first.
Here it is. Now, produce your explanation, and pray, make it improbable.
My dear fellow, there's nothing improbable about my explanation at all. In fact, it's perfectly ordinary. Old Mr. Thomas Cardew, who adopted me when I was a young boy, made me an his of Cardew to his young granddaughter, Cecily Cardew. Cecily, who lives in my place in the country, is under my valuable governess, Miss Prism.
And where is that place in the country, by the way?
And it's nothing to you, dear boy. You are not going to be invited. I may tell you candidly, the place is not in Shropshire.
Oh, I suspected that, my dear fellow. I have wandered all over Shropshire on 2 separate occasions. But go on. Why are you Ernest in town and Jack in the country?
My dear fellow, I don't know whether you'll be able to understand my real motives. You are hardly serious enough. When one is placed in the position of guardian, one has to adopt a very high moral tone across all subjects. It is one's very moral duty to do so. And as adopting a high moral tone can hardly be said to conduce very much to either one's health or one's happiness. In order to get up to town, I've always pretended to have a younger brother of the name of Ernest, who lives in the Albany, and gets into the most dreadful scrapes. But, my dear friend, is the whole truth pure and simple.
The truth is rarely pure and never simple. Modern life would be very tedious if it were either. And modern literature, a complete impossibility.
That wouldn't at all be a bad thing.
Literary criticism is not your forte, my dear fellow. Don't try it. You should leave that to people who haven't been at university. They do it so well in the daily papers. What you really are is a bunburyist. I was quite right in saying that you are a bunburyist. You are one of the most advanced bunburyists I know.
What on earth do you mean?
You have invented a very useful young brother with the name of Ernest, so that you may be able to come up to town whenever you like. I have invented an invaluable permanent invalid called Bunbury, so that I may be able to go down into the country whenever I choose. Bunbury is perfectly invaluable. If it wasn't for Bunbury's extraordinary bad health, for example, I wouldn't be able to dine with you at Willis's tonight, for I've really been engaged to Aunt Augusta for more than a week.
I haven't asked you to dine with me anywhere tonight.
I know. You are so foolish about sending out invitations. It is very careless of you. Nothing annoys people more than not receiving invitations.
You would much better dine with your Aunt Augusta.
I haven't the smallest indication of doing anything of the kind. For a start, I dine there on Monday, and once a week is quite enough to dine with one's own relations. In second place, whenever I do dine there, I am always treated as a member of the family, and sent down with either no women at all, or two. Besides, now that I know you to be a confirmed and secret bunburyist, I naturally want to talk to you about Bunbury. I want to tell you the rules.
I'm not a bunburyist at all. If Gwendolyn accepts me, and she's the only girl I ever saw in my entire life that I did want to marry. But I certainly won't want to know Bunbury.
Then your wife will. You don't seem to realise that in married life, 3 is company and 2 is none.
That, my dear young friend, is a theory that the corrupt French dramas have been propounding for the last 50 years.
Yes, and that the happy English home is proved in half the time.
For heaven's sake, don't try to be cynical. It's perfectly easy to be cynical.
It isn't easy to be anything nowadays. There's such a lot of beastly competition about it. That must be Aunt Augusta. Only relatives or creditors ever ring in that Wagnerian manner. Now, if I can get her out of the way for 10 minutes, so that you might have an opportunity of proposing to Gwendolyn, may I dine with you at Willis's tonight?
I suppose so, if you want to.
Yes, but you must be serious about it. I hate people who are not serious about meals. I'm so shallow of them. Lady Bracknell and Miss Fairfax.
Good afternoon, Algernon. I hope you've been behaving well.
I'm feeling very well, Aunt Augusta.
That is not quite the same thing. In fact, the two very rarely go together.
Dear me, you are smart.
I am always smart. Am I not, Mr. Worthing?
You are quite perfect, Miss Fairfax.
Oh, I hope I'm not that. That would leave no room for developments, and I intend to develop in many directions. I hope we're not too late, Algernon. I was obliged to call on dear Lady Harbury. I hadn't been there since her husband's death. I've never seen a woman look so altered. She looked quite 20 years younger. And now I have a cup of tea and one of those nice cucumber sandwiches you promised me.
Yes, Aunt Augusta.
Gwendolyn, won't you come and sit with me? Thank you, Mamma. I'm quite comfortable where I am.
Good heavens! Lane, why are there no cucumber sandwiches? I ordered them specially.
There were no cucumbers when I went down to the market this morning, sir. I went down twice.
No cucumbers?
No, not even for ready money. Thank you, sir.
I'm greatly distressed, Aunt Augusta. About there being no cucumbers in the market this morning. Not even for ready money.
It really makes no matter, Algernon. I had crumpets with Lady Harbury, who appears to be living quite for pleasure now.
I hear her hair has turned quite old from grief.
It certainly has changed its colour, though from what cause, of course, I cannot say. I am looking forward to dining with you tonight, Algernon. It is not often that I and your uncle get to see you, and you know how we like to keep an eye on you.
I'm afraid I shall have to give up the pleasures of dining with you tonight, Aunt Augusta.
I hope not, Algernon. It would put my table completely out. Your uncle would have to dine upstairs. Again. Fortunately, he is accustomed to that.
It is a bore, and I need hardly say greatly distressing. I have just received a telegram to say that my poor friend Bunbury is very ill again. They seem to think that I should be with him.
It is strange. This Mr. Bunbury seems to have curiously bad health.
Yes, Bunbury is a dreadful invalid.
Well, I must say, Algernon, I think it were high time Mr. Bunbury made up his mind if you were going to live or die. This shilly-shallying about the question is absurd. Nor do I in any way approve of this modern sympathy with invalids. Illness of any kind is hardly the thing to be encouraged in others. Health is the primary duty of life. At least, that is what I am telling your uncle. Not that he seems to notice. Still, I would be much obliged if you would ask this Mr. Bunbury from me to be kind enough to not have a relapse on Saturday. For I require you to arrange my music for me. It is my last reception, and one wants something that will encourage conversation, particularly at the end of the season when everyone has practically said what they had to say, which in most cases was not much.
I'll speak to Bunbury, Aunt Augusta, if he is still conscious, but I think I can guarantee that he will be all right by Saturday. Now, music is a great difficulty. Why, if one plays good music, then people don't listen. If one plays bad music, then people don't talk. But I'll go over the arrangement if you will join me in the next room.
Thank you. It is most thoughtful. I'm sure the programme will be delightful after a few expurgations. French songs I cannot possibly allow. People always think they are improper, and will act shocked, which is vulgar, or laugh, which is worse. But German, yes, German is a thoroughly respectable language, and indeed, I believe it is so. Gwendolyn, you will accompany me? Of course, Mamma.
Charming day it's been, Miss Fairfax.
Oh, pray don't talk to me about the weather, Mr. Worthing. Whenever people talk to me about the weather, I always feel quite certain they mean something else, and that makes me so nervous.
I do mean something else.
I thought so. In fact, I'm never wrong.
And I would like to be allowed to take advantage of Lady Bracknell's temporary absence.
Oh, I think that's an admirable idea. Mamma has a way of suddenly coming back into a room that I've often had to speak to her about.
Miss Fairfax, ever since I met you, I've admired you more than any girl I've ever met since I met you.
Yes, I'm quite well aware of the fact. In fact, I often wish that, in public at any rate, you had been more demonstrative. You see, we live in an age of ideals, Mr. Worthing. The fact is constantly mentioned in the more expensive monkey magazines, and has reached the provincial pulpits, I am told. And my idea has always been to love someone with the name Ernest. There's something in that name that inspires absolute confidence. When Algernon first mentioned to me he had a friend named Ernest, I knew I was destined to love you.
You really love me, Gwen.
Passionately.
Darling.
My own Ernest!
But you don't mean to say you couldn't love me if my name wasn't Ernest, do you?
But your name is Ernest.
Yes, I know that it is. But supposing it was something else, do you mean to say you couldn't love me then?
Oh, it was clearly metaphysical speculation. And like most metaphysical speculations, has very little reference to the actual way of life that we know.
Really, darling, to speak quite candidly, I don't much care for the universe. I don't think my name suits me at all.
It suits you perfectly. It is a divine name. It has music of its own. It produces vibrations.
Gwendolyn, really, I must say that I think there are many other much nicer names. I think the name Jack For instance, a charming name.
Jack. There's very little music in the name Jack, if any at all indeed. It does not thrill, it produces absolutely no vibrations. I have known several Jacks, and they all, without exception, have been more than usually plain. Besides, Jack is a notorious domesticity for John, and I pity any woman who is married to a man named John. No, the only real safe name is Ernest.
Gwendolyn, I must get christened once. I mean, we must get married once. There is no time to be lost.
Married, Mr. Worthing.
Well, surely. You know that I love you, and you've led me to believe, Miss Fairfax, you were not absolutely indifferent to me either.
Oh, I adore you. But you haven't proposed to me yet. Nothing at all has been said about marriage. The subject has not even been touched upon.
Well, may I propose to you now?
I think that's an admirable idea. And to spare you any possible disappointment, Mr. Worthing, I think it only fair to tell you quite frankly beforehand that I am determined to accept you.
Gwendolyn!
Yes, Mr. Worthing? What have you got to say to me?
You know what I've got to say to you.
Yes, but you don't say it.
Gwendolyn, will you marry me?
Of course I will, darling. How long have you been about it? I'm afraid you've had very little experience in how to propose.
My own one? I've never loved anyone in the world but you.
Yes, but men often propose for practice. I know my brother Gerald does. All my girlfriends tell me so. Oh, darling, how wonderfully blue eyes you have. They're quite blue. I hope you will always look at me just like that, especially when there are other people present.
Mr. Worthing, rise, sir, from this semi-recumbent position. It is most indecorous.
Mother, I must beg you to retire. This is no place for you. Besides, Mr. Worthing is not quite finished yet. Finished? What? May I ask? I'm engaged to be married to Mr. Worthing, Mamma. Oh, pardon me.
But you are not engaged to anyone. When you do become engaged, I, or your father, should self-permitting, will inform you of the fact. An engagement should not be done as a surprise, pleasant or unpleasant as the case may be. It could hardly be considered a matter that she should be allowed to arrange for herself. And now, I have a few questions for you, Mr. Worthing. While I am making these inquiries, you, Gwendolyn, shall wait below in the carriage.
Mamma!
In the carriage, Gwendolyn.
Yes, Mamma.
Gwendolyn! In the carriage!
What, Mamma? You may take a seat.
Thank you, Lady Bracknell. I prefer standing.
I feel bound to tell you, sir, that you are not down on my list of eligible young men. Although I have the same list as the dear Duchess of Bolton has. We work together, in fact. But I am quite willing to enter your name, should your answers be what a truly affectionate mother requires. Do you smoke?
Well, yes, I must admit I smoke.
I am glad to hear it. A man should always have an occupation of some sort. There are far too many idle men in London as it is. How old are you?
29.
A very good age to be married at. I have always been of the opinion that a man who desires to get married should know everything or nothing. Which do you know?
I know nothing, Lady Bracknell.
I am pleased to hear it. I do not approve of anything that tampers with natural ignorance. Ignorance is like a delicate, exotic flower. Touch it, and the bloom is gone. The whole theory of modern education is radically unsound. Fortunately, in England at any rate, it provides no effect whatsoever. If it did, it would probably
between 7,000 and 8,000 a year.
In land or in investment?
In investments, chiefly.
That is satisfactory. What between the duties exacted of one during one's lifetime and the ones exacted after one's death, land has ceased to be either profit or pleasure. It gives one position and prevents one from keeping it up. That is all there is to be said about land.
I own a country house for some land, attached to it, of course, about 1,500 acres, I believe. But I don't depend on that for my income. No, as far as I can make out, the poachers are the only people who make anything out of that.
A country house, how many bedrooms? Well, that can all be arranged later. You have a townhouse, I presume? A girl with a simple, unspoiled nature, like my Gwendolyn, can hardly be expected to reside in the country.
Yes, I own a house in Belgrave Square.
What number in Belgrave Square?
149.
The unfashionable side. Pity, I thought there was something. Still, that can easily be altered.
Do you mean the fashion or the side?
Both, if necessary, I presume. Now, on to more minor matters. Are your parents living?
I have lost both my parents.
To lose one parent, Mr. Worthing, might be considered a misfortune. To lose both looks like sheer carelessness. Who was your father? He was evidently a man of some wealth. Was he born in what the radical papers call the purple of commerce, or did he rise from the ranks of the aristocracy?
I'm afraid I don't really know. The fact is, Lady Bracknell, I said I had lost both my parents. It would be nearer the truth to say that my parents lost me. I don't actually know who I am by birth. I was found.
Found?
Yes. The late Mr. Thomas Cardew, a man of a kindly, charitable disposition, found me and gave me the name of Worthing because he happened to have a first-class ticket for Worthing in his pocket. Worthing is a place in Sussex. It is a seaside resort.
And where did this charitable gentleman with the first-class ticket find you?
In a handbag.
A handbag?
Yes, a handbag, Lady Bracknell. A somewhat large black handbag with handles to it. An ordinary handbag, in fact.
And where did this Mr. Thomas Cardew find this ordinary handbag?
In the cloakroom at Victoria Station. It was given to him in the state for his own.
The cloakroom at Victoria Station?
Yes, the Brighton line.
Their line is immaterial, Mr. Worthing. I confess, I am somewhat bewildered by what you just told me. To be born, or at any rate bred, in a handbag, whether it has handles or not, seems to me to display true contempt for the ordinary decencies of family life that reminds one of the worst excesses of the French Revolution. And I presume you know what that unfortunate movement led to? As to the particular locality in which the handbag was discovered, a cloakroom at a railway station might serve to conceal a social indiscretion. Indeed, probably has been used for that very reason before now. It could hardly be considered an assured basis for a recognized position in good society.
Well, may I ask now what you would suggest I do? I need hardly say I would do anything in the world to ensure Gwendolyn's happiness.
I would strongly advise you, Mr. Worthing, to acquire some relations as soon as possible, and to produce one parent of either sex before the season is quite over.
Well, I don't quite see how I could possibly manage to do that. I can produce the handbag at any moment. It is my dressing room at home. I really think that it should satisfy you, Lady Bracknell.
Me? Sir? What is it to do with me? You could hardly imagine that I and Lord Bracknell would dream of allowing our only daughter, a girl brought with the utmost care, to marry into a cloakroom and form an alliance from a parcel. Good morning, Mr. Worthing.
Good morning. How idiotic you are!
Didn't it go off all right, old boy? You don't mean to say that Gwendolyn refused you? I know it is the way she has. She is always refusing people. I think it is most ill-natured of her.
Oh, Gwendolyn is as right as a trivet. As far as she is concerned, we're engaged to be married. Her mother is perfectly unbearable. I've never met such a gorgon. I don't really know what a gorgon is like, but I'm quite sure that she is one. At any rate, she's at least a monster without being a myth, which I say is rather unfair. I'm sorry, Edgy. I suppose I shouldn't talk about your arms in that manner before you.
My dear fellow, I love hearing my relations abused. It is the only way that I can put up with them. Relations are just a tedious bunch of people who haven't the smallest idea of how to live, nor the remotest instinct of when to die.
Well, that's nonsense.
It isn't.
I would argue about it. You always want to argue about things.
That is exactly what things were made for.
Upon my word, if I thought that, I'd shoot myself. You don't think there is any chance of Gwendolyn becoming like her mother in about 150 years or so? Do you, Algie?
All women become like their mothers. That is their tragedy. No man does, that is his.
Is that clever?
It's perfectly phrased, and quite as right as any observation in civilized life should be.
We're sick to death of cleverness nowadays. You can't go anywhere without meeting clever people. The whole thing has become an absolute public nuisance. I wish to goodness we had a few fools left.
We have.
I should extremely like to meet them. What do they talk about?
The fools. About the clever people, of course.
What fools?
Did you tell Gwendolyn about your being Ernest in town and Jack in the country?
My dear friend, the truth isn't quite the sort of thing one tells to a nice, sweet, refined girl. What extraordinary ideas you have about the way to behave to a woman.
The only way to behave to a woman is to make love to her if she's pretty, someone else if she's plain.
Oh, that's nonsense.
What about your brother? What about the profligate Ernest?
Oh, that's all right. I shall have got rid of him before the end of the week. I shall say he died in Paris of apoplexy. Lots of people die of apoplexy, don't they? Quite suddenly.
Yes, but it's hereditary, my dear fellow. It's the sort of thing that runs in families. You had much better say a severe chill.
And you're sure a severe chill isn't hereditary? Or anything about that?
Of course it isn't.
Very well. My poor brother Ernest was carried on in Paris by a severe chill. That gets rid of him.
But I thought you said that Miss Cardew was a little too interested in your brother. Won't she feel his loss a great deal?
Oh, that's all right. Miss Cardew, I am happy to say, is not a silly romantic girl. She's got a capital appetite, enjoys long walks on the beach, and pays no attention at all in her lessons.
I would rather like to meet Cecily.
I shall take very good care you never do. She's excessively pretty. There's only just turned 18.
Have you told Gwendolyn about your having an excessively pretty ward who is only just 18?
One doesn't just blurt these things out to people. I'm quite certain that as soon as Gwendolyn and Cecily meet, they'll be great friends. In fact, I'll bet you anything you like that half an hour after they've met, they will be calling each other sister.
Women only do that after they have called each other a lot of other things first. Now, my dear fellow, if we want to get a good deal of Willis's, we really must go and change. Don't you know that it is almost 7?
It is always nearly 7.
Well, I'm hungry.
I never knew you when you weren't.
Well, what should we do after? Shall we go to the theatre?
Oh, no, I loathe listening.
Well, we might go to the club.
Oh, no, I loathe talking.
Well, let us trot round to the Empire at 10.
Oh, no, I can't stand looking at things. It is so silly.
Then what shall we do?
Nothing.
It is awfully hard work doing nothing. Fortunately, I don't mind hard work as long as there is no definite object of any kind.
Miss Fairfax.
Gwendolyn, upon my word.
Algie, kindly turn your back. I have something very particular to say to Mr. Worthing.
Really, Gwendolyn, I don't think I can allow this.
Algie, You always adopt a strictly immoral attitude towards life. I don't think you're quite old enough to do that.
Gwendolyn!
Oh, darling, we might never get married. From the expression of Mamma's face, I fear we never shall. Whatever influence I had over Mamma, I lost at the age of 3. But even though she may prevent us from becoming man and wife, and she may want me to marry someone else, nothing she can possibly do will alter my internal devotion to you.
My own darling.
Oh, the story of your romantic origins, as related to me by Mamma with unpleasing comments, has naturally stirred the deepest fibres of my nature. Your Christian name is still an irresistible fascination. The simplicity of your character makes you exquisitely incomprehensible to me. Your town address in the Albany I have. What is your address in the country?
The Manor House, Walton, Hertfordshire.
There is good postal service, I suppose? It might be necessary to do something desperate. That, of course, will require serious consideration. Algie, you may turn around now.
Thanks, I've turned around already.
You may also ring the bell.
Lane!
You will let me see you to your carriage, won't you, Miss Fairfax?
Of course, darling.
I will see Miss Fairfax out.
Yes, sir. Glass of sherry, Lane.
Yes, sir.
Tomorrow, Lane, I'm going to Bunbury.
Yes, sir.
I shall probably not be back till Monday afternoon. Play out with my dress clothes, my smoking jacket, and all the Bunbury suits.
Yes, sir.
I hope tomorrow is a fine day, Lane.
It never is, sir.
Lane, you are a perfect pessimist.
I do my best to bring satisfaction, sir.
Now there's a nice, sweet, sensible girl. The only girl I ever did see in my entire life that I did care for. What on earth are you so amused about?
Oh, I'm a little worried about my friend Bunbury is all.
If you're not careful, one of these days, your friend Bunbury is going to get you into a serious scrape.
Oh, I love scrapes. They are the only thing that are never serious.
That's nonsense. You never talk anything but nonsense.
Nobody ever does.
Cecily? Cecily? Surely such an utilitarian occupation as watering of flowers is rather Morton's duty than yours? Especially at a moment of intellectual pleasure with you. The German grammar's on the table. Frederick on page 15 will repeat yesterday's lessons.
But I don't like German. It isn't at all a becoming language. I know perfectly well that I look quite plain after my German lesson.
Child, you know how anxious your guardian is. You should improve yourself in every way. You laid particular stress on German as you were leaving the town yesterday. Indeed. He always lays stress on German when he is leaving the town.
Uncle Jack is so very serious. Sometimes he is so serious I think he cannot be quite well.
Your guardian enjoys the best of health. His gratitude for me, especially to be commanded with someone as comparatively young as he is. And I know one has a high sense of duty and responsibility.
I suppose that is why he often looks a little bored when we three are together.
Cecily, I'm surprised at you. Mr. Worthing has many troubles in his life. I'd marry his triviality would be out of place in this conversation. You must remember his constant anxiety about the unfortunate young man, his brother.
I do wish Uncle Jack would allow that unfortunate young man, his brother, to come down here sometimes. We might have a good influence over him, Miss Prism. I know you certainly would. You know German and geology, and things of that kind influence man very much.
No, I don't think even I could produce an effect on a person who, according to his own brother's admission, is irretrievably weak and fascinating. Indeed, I don't even know if I wish to retain him. I'm not in favour of this modern maniac turning bad people into good people at a moment's notice. As men sow, so let him reap. You must put away your diary, Cecily. Don't see why she keep a diary at all.
I keep a diary in order to enter the wonderful secrets of my life. If I didn't write them down, I should probably forget all about them.
Memory, my dear Cecily, is a diary we all carry about with us.
Yes, but it usually chronicles the things that have never happened and couldn't possibly happen. I believe memory is responsible for nearly all 3-volume novels Moody sends us.
Do not speak slightingly of the 3-volume novels, Cecily. I wrote one myself in my early days.
Did you really, Miss Prism? How wonderfully clever you are. I hope it did not end happily. I hate novels that end happily. They depress me so much.
Well, the good end happily and bad unhappily. That's what fiction needs.
I suppose so, but it seems very unfair. And was your novel ever published?
Alas, no. I'm afraid the novel was abandoned. I used this word in the sense of last one is laid. But to your work, child, these speculations are profitless.
Oh, but I see dear Dr. Chasuble coming up through the garden.
Dr. Chasuble, this is indeed a surprise.
And how old is this woman, Miss Prism? I trust you're well.
Miss Prism has just been complaining of a slight headache. I think it would do her so much good to take a short stroll with me through the park, Dr. Chasuble.
I did not mention anything about a headache, Cecily.
Yes, dear Miss Prism, I know that, but I felt instinctively that you had one. Indeed, I was thinking about that and not about my German lesson when the rector came in.
Cecily, I hope you're not inattentive.
Oh, I'm afraid I am.
This is rather strange. Were I fortunate to be Miss Prism's pupil, I would hang upon her lips. Metaphorically, of course, my metaphor is drawn from bees. Mr. Worthing's not returned for town yet, has he?
No, we do not expect to see him until Monday afternoon.
Yes, he often likes to spend his Sundays in London. He's not one of those whose sole black if in aim is enjoyment, unlike that unfortunate brother of his. And now I'm not intrude on Bulgaria and her pupil any longer.
Bulgaria? My name's Letitia, Doctor.
A classical illusion, merely, drawn from pagan authors. I shouldn't see you know that at Evensong.
I think I will take the trip. I seem to have a headache after all, and a walk might do some good.
With pleasure, Miss Prism. With pleasure. We might go as far as the schools and back.
It would be such a pleasure. Cecily, you will reach a political economy in my absence. The chaplain thought brutally, you may admit, somewhat too sensational. Even these metallic problems seem to have their melodramatic side.
Horrid political economy. Horrid geography. Horrid German.
A Mr Earnest Worthing has driven over from the station. He has brought his luggage with him.
Mr. Earnest Worthing before the Albany. Uncle Jack's brother. Did you tell him Mr. Worthing was in town?
Yes, miss. He seemed very much disappointed. I mentioned that you and Miss Prism were in the garden. He seemed anxious to speak to you privately for a moment.
Ask Mr. Earnest Worthing to come here, and I suppose you'd better speak to the housekeeper about a room for him.
Yes, miss.
I have never met any really wicked person before. I feel rather frightened. I'm so afraid he will look just like everyone else. He does.
You are my little cousin Cecily, I am sure.
You are under some strange mistake. I am not little. In fact, I believe I am more than usually tall for my age. But I am your cousin Cecily, and you from your card I see on my Uncle Jack's brother. My cousin Ernest. My wicked cousin Ernest.
Oh, I am not really wicked at all, cousin Cecily. You mustn't think that I am wicked.
If you are not, then you have certainly been deceiving us all in a very inexcusable manner. I hope you have not been leading a double life, pretending to be wicked and really being good all the time. That would be hypocrisy.
Oh. Well, I have been rather reckless.
I'm glad to hear it.
In fact, now that you mention the subject, I have been very bad in my own small way.
I don't think you should be so proud of that fact. Although I'm sure it must have been very pleasant.
It is much pleasanter being here with you, Cousin Cecily.
I don't see why you are here at all. Uncle Jack won't be back until Monday afternoon.
That is a great disappointment. I am obliged to go up by the first train Monday morning. I have a business appointment that I'm anxious to miss.
Couldn't you miss it anywhere but in London?
No, the appointment is in London.
Well, I know, of course, how important it is not to keep a business engagement if one wants to retain any sense of the beauty of life. But still, I think you better wait until Uncle Jack arrives. I know he wants to speak to you about your emigrating.
About my what?
You're emigrating. He's going to buy you an outfit.
I certainly wouldn't let Jack buy my outfit. He has no taste in neckties at all.
Oh, I don't think you will be requiring neckties. Uncle Jack is sending you to Australia.
Australia? I'd sooner die.
He said at dinner on Wednesday night that you would have to choose between this world, the next world, and Australia.
The accounts I received on the next world and Australia are not at all encouraging. This world is good enough for me, Cousin Cecily.
Yes, but are you good enough for it?
Oh, I am afraid I am not that. That is why I would like you to reform me. You might make that your mission if you don't mind, Cousin Cecily.
I'm afraid I have no time this afternoon.
Then do you mind if I reform myself this afternoon?
It is rather quixotic of you, but I think you should try.
I will. Oh, I feel better already.
You are looking a little worse.
That is because I am hungry.
Oh, how thoughtless of me. I should have remembered that when one is trying to lead an entirely new life, one requires regular and wholesome meals. Won't you come in?
Thank you. Might I have a buttonhole first? I never have an appetite unless I have a buttonhole first.
A marshal meal?
No, I'd sooner have a pink rose.
Why?
Because you are like a pink rose, Cousin Cecily.
I don't think it is right of you to talk to me like that. Miss Prism never says such things to me.
Now, Miss Prism is a short-sighted old lady. You are the prettiest girl I ever saw.
Miss Prism says that all good looks are a snare.
They are a snare that any sensible man would like to be caught in.
Oh, I wouldn't dare to catch a sensible man. I wouldn't know what to talk to him about.
You're too much alone, Charles. We should get married. And Miss Thrope, I can understand. Woman Thrope, never.
Trust me, I think that's also a neogelistic phrase. The precept as well as the practice of primitive church was distinctly against matrimony.
That's obviously the reason why the primitive church has not lasted up in the present day. They do not seem to realise, Doctor, that by persistently remaining single, a man converts himself to a permanent public temptation. Men should be more careful. This very celibacy leads weak professors astray.
But is a man not equally attractive when married?
No married man is ever attractive except his wife.
And often I've been told not even to her.
That depends on the intellectual sympathies of the woman. Maturity can always be depended upon. Ripeness can be trusted. Young women are brave. I spoke horticulturally. My metaphors run from fruits. But where's Cecily?
Perhaps she followed us from schools.
Mr. Worthing?
Mr. Worthing.
This is indeed a surprise. We do not expect to see you until Monday afternoon.
I've returned earlier than I expected. Dr Chasuble, I hope you're well.
Mr. Worthing, I hope that this A garb of woe is not betokened to some terrible calamity.
Brother,
More shameful deaths and
Someone
extravagance.
leading his life of pleasure.
dead.
Your brother Ernest, dead?
Quite dead.
What a lesson for him. I'm sure you'll profit by it.
Mr. Worthing, you have consolation knowing that you are at least the most forgiving and generous of brothers.
Poor brother Ernest. He had many faults, but it is a sad, sad one. No, he died abroad. In Paris, in fact. I received a telegram late last night from the manager of a grand hotel.
Was the cause of death known?
A severe chill at the sleep.
As men so solid and brief.
Charity. Dear Mr. Prism, charity. I myself am peculiarly susceptible to drafts. Will the intimate take place here?
No. No. He seems to express some wish to be buried in Paris.
In Paris? Mr. Worthing, I don't think that alludes to any serious state of mind. You no doubt wish me to make some slight allusion to tragic domestic affliction next Sunday. My sermon on the meaning of manner in the wilderness can be applied to almost any situation. Weddings, christenings, and in present tense more tragic.
Ah, that reminds me, you mentioned christenings, I think, Dr. Jules. I suppose you know how to christen all right? I mean, of course, you are continually christening, I expect.
But Mr. Worthing, is there any particular infant that you want to christen? Your brother, I believe, was unmarried, was he not?
Yes.
Men whose sole aim in life is pleasure usually are.
But it is not for any child to wish for christening, please, Dr. Jules. No. The fact of the matter is, I myself would like to be christened. This afternoon, you have nothing better to do.
But surely Mr. Worthing had been christened already.
I don't remember anything about it. Of course, I don't know if anything would bother you in some way, or if you think I'm a little too old now.
Not at all. The sprinkling as well as the immersion of adults is a perfectly canonical practice.
Immersion?
Do you have no apprehensions? A little sprinkling is all that I think is necessary, or that I think is advisable. Our weather is so changeable. At what hours do you want the ceremonies to be performed?
Oh, I might try around about 5, if that would suit you.
Perfectly, perfectly. In fact, I have 2 similar ceremonies I'll be doing at the same time, in case of twins.
No. 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 I don't see much fun in being christened with other babies, Dr. Jules. No, it would be childish. Would 5:30 do?
Admirably, admirably. And now, Mr. Worthing, I'm not intruding on house of sorrow any longer. Just know that bitter trials such as these are often blessings in disguise.
This seems to me a blessing of an extremely obvious kind.
Oh, Uncle Jack, it is good to see you back. But what horrid clothes you've got on. Do go change them.
Jolly!
Uncle Jack, what is the matter? Do look happy. You look as if you've got a toothache. And what a surprise I have for you. Who do you think is in the dining room? Your brother!
Who?
Brother Ernest. He arrived about half an hour ago.
What nonsense. I haven't got a brother.
Uncle Jack, don't say that. However badly he may have behaved to you in the past, he is still your brother. You couldn't be so heartless as to disown him. I'll bring him out, and you will shake hands with him, won't you, Uncle Jack?
These are very joyful tidings.
After the Alderman resigned to its loss, this sudden return seems to me peculiarly distressing.
My brother's in the dining room. I don't know what it all means. I think it's perfectly absurd. Good heavens.
Brother John, I have come down from town to tell you that I'm very sorry for all the trouble that I've given you, and that I intend to lead a better life in the future.
Uncle Jack, you're not going to refuse your own brother's hand?
Nothing will induce me to take his hand. His coming down here is disgraceful. He knows perfectly well why.
Uncle Jack, do be nice. There is some good in everyone. Ernest has just been telling me about his poor invalid friend, Mr Bunbury, whom he goes to visit so often. And surely there is so much good in someone who is kind to an invalid and leaves the pleasures of London to sit by a bed of pain.
Oh, he's been talking about Bunbury, has he?
Yes, he told me all about poor Mr Bunbury and his terrible state of health.
Bunbury. Well, I won't have him talk to you about Bunbury or about anything else. It's enough to drive him perfectly frantic.
Well, I admit that the faults were all on my side, but I must say that Brother John's coldness towards me is peculiarly painful, especially seeing as this is the first time that I've been here.
Uncle Jack, if you don't shake hands with Ernest, I will never forgive you.
Never forgive me?
Never, never, never.
Well, this is the last time I shall ever do it.
It is pleasant, is it not? To see so perfect a reconciliation. I think you might meet your two brothers well.
You will come with us, Cecily.
Certainly, Miss Prism. My little task of reconciliation is over.
Done a beautiful action today, my child.
Let us not be too premature in our judgment.
I feel very happy.
Algy, you scoundrel. You've got to leave this place at once. I don't like Bunburying around here.
I have put Mr. Ernest's things in the room next to yours, sir. I suppose that is all right.
What?
Mr. Ernest's luggage, sir. I have unpacked it and put it in the room next to your own.
His luggage.
Yes, sir, his luggage. 3 portmanteaus, a dressing case, 2 hat boxes, and a large luncheon basket.
Yes, I'm afraid I can't stay more than a week this time.
Merriman ordered a dog cart at once. Mr. Earnest has suddenly been called back to town.
Yes, sir.
What a fearful lie you are, Jack. I haven't been called back to town at all.
Yes, you have.
I haven't heard anyone call me.
Your duty as a gentleman calls you back.
My duty as a gentleman never interfered with my pleasures in the smallest degree.
I quite understand that.
Well, Cecily is a darling.
You're not to talk of Miss Cardew like that. I don't like it.
Well, I don't like your clothes. You look perfectly ridiculous in them. Why don't you go up and change? It is perfectly ridiculous to be in deep mourning for someone who is actually staying in your house as a guest for a whole week. I call it grotesque.
You're certainly not staying in my house for a whole week as a guest. Or is anything else? You've got to leave at once. By the 4:05 train.
I certainly won't leave while you're in mourning. It would be most unkind. If I were in mourning, you would stay with me, I suppose. It would be very unkind if you didn't.
Well, will you go if I change my clothes?
I suppose, if you are not too long about it. I never saw anybody take so long to dress with so little result.
It is certainly better than being as overdressed as you always are.
If I am occasionally a little overdressed, I make up for it by being always immensely overeducated.
Your vanity is ridiculous. Your conduct an outrage, and your presence in my garden utterly absurd. However, you've got to leave by the 4:05 train, and I hope you have a pleasant journey back to town. This Bunbury, as you call it, has not been a particularly successful trip for you, has it?
I think it has been a great success. I am in love with Cecily, and that is everything.
Oh, I thought you were with Uncle Jack.
Cecily.
Is he going to take you for a nice drive?
He's gone to send me away.
Then have we got to part?
I am afraid so. It is a very painful parting.
It is always painful to part from people whom one has known for a very brief space of time. The absence of old friends one can endure with equanimity, but even a momentary separation from one whom one has just met is almost unbearable.
Thank you.
The dog cart is at the door, sir.
It can wait, Merriman, for 5 minutes.
Yes, miss.
I hope, Cecily, I shall not offend you if I state quite frankly and openly that you appear to be the visible personification of absolute perfection.
I think your frankness does you great credit, Ernest. If you'll allow me, I will copy your remarks into my diary.
Diary? Oh, do let me read it, Cecily.
Oh, I couldn't possibly. It would make you far too conceited.
Cecily.
Don't cough, Ernest. When one is dictating, one should always speak fluently and not cough. And besides, I don't know how to spell cough.
Cecily, ever since I've met you, I've dared to love you wildly, passionately, devotedly, and hopelessly.
I don't think you should tell me you love me wildly, passionately, devotedly, hopelessly. Hopelessly doesn't make much sense, does it?
Darling,
The dog cart is waiting, sir.
tell it to come round next week, at the same hour.
Yes, sir.
Uncle Jack would be very much annoyed if he knew you were staying on until next week at the same hour.
I don't care about Jack. I don't care about anybody else in the world but you. I love you, Cecily. You will marry me, won't you?
Oh, you silly boy, of course! Why, we've been engaged for the last 3 months.
For the last 3 months.
Yes, it will be exactly 3 months on Thursday.
But how did we become engaged?
Well, ever since Uncle Jack first confessed to us that he had a younger brother who was very wicked and bad, you, of course, have formed the chief topic of conversation between myself and Miss Prism. And, of course, one who is often talked about is always very attractive. One feels there must be something in him, of course. I dare say it was foolish of me, but I fell in love with you, Ernest.
Cecily. But when was our engagement actually settled?
On the 14th of February last. Worn out by your entire ignorance of my existence, I determined to end the matter one way or another. Then after a long struggle with myself, I finally accepted you under this dear old tree here. The next day I bought this little ring with your name, and this is the bangle with the tree lover's charm I promised you always to wear.
Did I give you this? It's very pretty, isn't it?
Yes, you've wonderfully good taste, Ernest. It's the excuse I've always given for you leading such a bad life. And here is the box in which I keep all your dear letters.
My letters? But my sweet Cecily, I've never written you any letters.
No. Oh, you need hardly remind me of that, Ernest. I remember only too well that I was forced to write them for you. I wrote always 3 times a week, and sometimes oftener.
Oh, do let me read them, Cecily.
Oh, I couldn't possibly. It would make you far too conceited. The ones you wrote me after I'd written off the engagement are so beautifully written and so badly spelled that even now I can hardly read them without crying a little.
But was our engagement ever broken up?
Of course it was. On the 22nd of March. You can see the diary entry if you like. Today I will cough my engagement with Ernest. I feel it is better to do so. The weather still continues charming.
But why did you break it off, Cecily? What had I done? I had done nothing at all. Cecily, I am very much hurt to hear that you broke off our engagement, especially when the weather was so charming.
It would have hardly been a very serious engagement if it hadn't been broken off at least once. But I forgave you before the week was out.
My own love.
My sweet, romantic boy. I hope your hair curls naturally. Does it?
Yes, darling? With a little help from others.
I'm so glad.
You'll never break off our engagement again, Cecily.
Oh, I couldn't break it off now that I've actually met you. And besides, of course, there is the question of your name.
Yes, of course.
You must not laugh at me, darling, but it has always been a girlish dream of mine to love someone whose name was Ernest. There is something in that name that inspires absolute confidence. I pity any poor married woman whose husband is not called Ernest.
But, my dear sweet child, you don't mean to say that you could not love me if I had some other name?
But what name?
Oh, any name you like. Algernon, for example.
But I do not like the name of Algernon.
Well, my own dear, sweet, loving little darling, I can see no reason why you should object to the name of Algernon. It is not at all a bad name. In fact, it is rather an aristocratic name. More than half the chaps who get into the bankruptcy court are called Algernon. But seriously, Cecily, if my name was Algie, couldn't you love me?
I might respect you, Ernest. I might admire your character, but I could not give you my undivided attention.
Cecily, your rector here is, I suppose, fully practiced in all the rites and ceremonies of the church.
Oh, yes. Dr Chasuble is a most learned man. He has hardly written a single book, so you can imagine how much he knows.
You seem at once the most important christening. I mean, most important business. I shan't be away more than half an hour.
Considering that we've been engaged since February the 14th, and we only met today for the first time, I think it is rather hard of you to leave me for a long period as half an hour. Couldn't you make it 20 minutes?
I'll be back in no time.
What an impetuous boy he is. I like his hair so much. I must enter his proposal into my diary.
Hey, Miss Fairfax has just called to see Mr. Worthing on very important business. Miss Fairfax states.
Isn't Mr. Worthing in his library?
He went in the direction of the rectory some time ago.
Pray, ask the lady to come here, and I suppose you have to sort some tea.
Yes, miss.
Miss Fairfax, I suppose one of the many elderly women who is associated with Uncle Jack through his charitable work. I don't like women who are associated with charitable work. It is so forward of them.
Miss Fairfax.
Pray, let me introduce myself to you. My name is Cecily Cardew.
Cecily Cardew? What a very sweet name. Something tells me we are going to be great friends. I like you already more than I can say. And my first impressions of people are never wrong.
How nice of you to like me after we've known each other such a comparatively short time. Pray, sit down.
I may call you Cecily, may I not?
With pleasure.
Oh, and you will always call me Gwendolyn, won't you, if you wish? Then that is all quite settled, is it not?
I hope so.
Perhaps this might be a favourable opportunity of my mentioning who I am. My father is Lord Bracknell. I suppose you've never heard, Papa?
I don't think so.
Oh, outside the family home, Papa, I'm glad to say, is entirely unknown. I think that is quite as it should be. The home seems to me to be the proper sphere for the man. Quite frankly, when he begins to neglect his domestic duties, he becomes painfully effeminate, does he not? And I don't like that. It makes men so very attractive. Cecily, Short isn't, I suppose.
Oh no, I live here.
Really? Your mother, no doubt, or some female relative of advanced years resides here also.
Oh no, I have no mother, nor in fact any relations.
Really?
My guardian, with the help of Miss Prism, has the arduous task of looking after me.
Your guardian?
Yes, I'm Mr Worthing's ward.
Oh? He never mentioned to me he had a ward. How very secretive of him. It grows more interesting hourly. I cannot say, however, that the news inspires me with feelings of unmixed delight. I am very fond of you, Cecily. I have liked you ever since I met you. But I'm bound to state that, now that I know that you are Mr Worthing's ward, I cannot help expressing a wish that you were, well, just a little older than you seem to be, and not quite so very alluring in appearance. In fact, if I may speak candidly,
Oh, pray do. I believe whenever anyone has anything unpleasant to say, one should always be quite candid.
well, to speak with perfect candor, Cecily, I wish you were fully 42 and more than usually plain for your age. Ernest has a strong, upright nature. He is the very soul of truth and honour. Disloyalty to him would be as impossible as deception, but even men of the noblest possible moral character are very susceptible to the physical influences of others. Modern, no less than ancient history, provides us with many most painful examples of what I refer to. Indeed, if it were not so, history would be quite unreadable.
Excuse me, Quentin. Did you say Ernest?
Yes?
Oh, but it is not Mr Earnest Worthing who is my guardian. It is his brother, his elder brother.
Ernest never mentioned to me he had a brother.
I'm afraid they have not been on good terms for a long time.
Oh, that accounts for it. And now that I think of it, I have never heard any man mention his brother. The subject seems distasteful to most men. Oh, Cecily, you have lifted a load from my mind. I was growing almost anxious. It would have been terrible had any cloud come across a friendship like ours, would it not? Of course you are quite certain that it is not Mr Earnest Worthing who is your guardian.
Quite sure. In fact, I'm going to be his.
I beg your pardon!
Dearest Gwendolyn, there is no reason why I should make any secret of it to you at all. Our little country newspaper is sure to chronicle the fact next week. Mr Earnest Worthing and I are engaged to be married.
Dear Cecily, there must be some slight error. Mr Earnest Worthing is engaged to me. The announcement will appear in the Morning Post on Saturday at the latest.
It seems to me, Gwendolyn, that you are under some slight misconception. Ernest proposed to me exactly 10 minutes ago.
That is indeed very curious, for he asked me to be his wife yesterday afternoon at 5:30. If you care to verify the incident, pray do so. I never travel without my diary. One should always have something sensational to read in the train. I'm very sorry, Cecily, if it is any disappointment to you, but I am afraid that I have the prior claim.
It would distress me more than I could tell you, dearest Gwendolyn, if it were to cause you any mental or physical anguish. But I feel bound to point out that since Ernest proposed to you, he has clearly changed his mind.
If the poor boy has been entrapped into any foolish promise, I shall see it as my duty to rescue him at once with a firm hand.
Whatever unfortunate entanglement my dear boy may have got himself into, I will not reproach it with him after we are married.
Do you allude to me, miscard you as an entanglement? You are presumptuous. On occasions such as these, it becomes more than a moral duty to speak one's mind. It becomes a pleasure.
Do you suggest, Miss Fairfax, Earnest into an engagement? How dare you? This is no time for wearing a shallow mask of manners. When I see a spade, I call it a spade.
I'm very glad to say that I have never seen a spade. It is very obvious that our social spheres have been wildly different.
Shall I lay the tea here as usual, miss?
Yes, as usual.
Are there many interesting walks in the vicinity, Miss Cardew?
Oh, yes, a fair few. From one of the hills quite close, one can see 5 counties.
5 counties! I don't think I should like that. I hate crowds.
I suppose that is why you live in town.
Quite a well-kept garden you have here, Miss Cardew.
So glad you like it, Miss Fairfax.
I had no idea there were any flowers in the country.
Oh, flowers are as common here, Miss Fairfax, as people are in London.
Personally, I can't understand how anybody manages to exist in the country. If anybody who is anybody does. The country always bores me to death.
I suppose this is what the newspapers are calling the agricultural depression, is it not? I believe the aristocracy is suffering from it at great at present. I believe it is almost an epidemic amongst them. May I offer you some tea, Miss Fairfax?
Yes, thank you. Test them, girl. I require tea.
Sugar?
No, thank you. Sugar is not fashionable anymore.
Cake or bread and butter?
Bread and butter. Cake is rarely seen in the best houses nowadays.
And that to Miss Fairfax.
You have filled my tea with lumps of sugar, and though I distinctively asked you for cake, you have bread and butter, you have given me cake! I am known for the gentleness of my disposition and extraordinary sweetness of my nature, but I must warn you, Miss Cardew may go too far!
To save my poor, innocent, trusting boy from the machinations of any other girl, there are no lengths to which I shall not go.
Oh, from the moment I met you, I distrusted you. I felt you were false and deceitful. I am never deceived in such matters. My first impressions of people are invariably right.
It seems to me, Miss Fairfax, that I am trespassing on your valuable time. No doubt you have many other calls of a similar nature to make in the neighbourhood.
Ernest! My own Ernest!
London, darling.
One moment. Ernest, are you engaged to be married to this young lady?
To dear little Cecily? Of course not. What could have put such an idea into your pretty little head?
Thank you. You may.
Seems to me, Miss Fairfax, that there has been some slight misunderstanding. The man who at present has his arm around your waist is my guardian, Mr John Worthing.
I beg your pardon?
This is Uncle Jack.
Jack!
Ah, here is Ernest.
Hi, Mother.
A moment, Ernest. May I ask you a question? Are you engaged to be married to this young lady here?
To what, young lady? Good heavens, Gwendolyn!
To good heavens, Gwendolyn. No, I mean to Gwendolyn.
How
little head.
Thank you. You may. Oh, I knew there had to be some slight error, Miss Cardew, but the gentleman who is currently embracing you is my cousin, Mr Algernon Moncreiff. Algernon Moncreiff. Oh, is your name Algernon?
I cannot deny it.
Oh. Is your name really John?
I could deny it if I liked. I could deny anything if I liked. But my name is most certainly John. It's been John for years.
The gross deception is being practiced on the pair of us. My poor wounded Cecily, what is sweet just Gwebdikeb. You will always call me sister, won't you? There is just one more question I would like to be allowed to ask my guardian first. Excellent idea. Mr. Worthing, there's just one question I would like to be permitted to put to you. Where is your brother Ernest? We are both engaged to your brother Ernest, so it is of some importance to us to know where your brother Ernest is at present.
Gwendolyn. Cecily. Algernon. It is very painful for me to be forced to speak the truth. It's the first time in my life I've ever been reduced to such a painful position. And I really am quite inexperienced in doing anything of the kind. However, I will tell you quite plainly that I have no brother Ernest. I have no brother at all. I've never had a brother in my entire life, and certainly have not the smallest intention of having one in the future.
No brother at all?
None.
Had you never a brother of any kind?
Never. Not even of any kind.
I think it is quite clear, Cecily, that none of us is engaged to be married to anybody. It is not a very pleasant position for a young girl to suddenly find herself in, is it? Let us go into the house. They would hardly venture to follow us there. Certainly. Men are so cowardly, aren't they?
This ghastly state of affairs is what you call bunburying, I suppose. Well, you've no right whatsoever to Bunbury around here.
That's absurd. One has the right to Bunbury wherever one chooses. Every serious Bunburyist knows that.
Serious Bunburys. Good heavens.
Well, one must be serious about something if one wants to retain any enjoyment in life. I am serious about Bunbury. What you are serious about, I haven't the faintest idea. About everything, I should fancy. You have such a trivial nature.
Well, the only small consolation I have in this whole wretched business is the fact that your friend Bunbury is quite exploded. You're going to be able to run down to the country quite as often as you used to, Algie. A very good thing, too.
Your brother is a little off colour, isn't he, Jack? You won't be able to come up to town as often as your wicked custom was. And not a bad thing either.
And as for your conduct towards Miss Cardew, I have to say, your taking in of a sweet, simple, innocent girl is quite inexcusable. Say nothing of the fact she is my ward.
I can see no possible defence in your deceiving a brilliant, clever, thoroughly experienced young lady as Miss Fairfax. Say nothing of the fact that she is my cousin.
I simply wanted to be engaged to Gwendolyn. I love her.
I simply wanted to be engaged to Cecily. I adore her.
There's certainly no chance of your marrying Miss Cardew.
I can't see how much chance, Jack, and you and Miss Fairfax being united.
Well, that's no business of yours.
If it were my business, I wouldn't talk about it. Only stockbrokers do that, and then merely at dinner parties.
How can you sit there, calmly eating muffins while I'm in this horrible trouble? I can't make it out. To me, you seem to be perfectly harmless.
Well, I can't eat muffins in an agitated manner, but it would probably get in my cuffs. One should always eat muffins quite calmly. It is the only way to eat them.
I say it's perfectly harmless eating muffins at all, under the circumstances.
When I'm in trouble, eating is the only thing that consoles me. Indeed, when I am in very deep trouble, as anyone who knows me intimately will tell you, I refuse everything but food and drink. At the present, I am eating muffins because I am unhappy.
Well, you don't need to eat them all in that greedy way.
I do wish you would have some tea cake instead. I don't like tea cake.
Good heavens. I suppose a man made his own muffins in his own garden.
But you would just say it was perfectly harmless to eat muffins.
I said it was perfectly harmless of you, under the circumstances. It was a very different thing.
Yeah, maybe so, but the muffins are the same.
Algie, I wish to goodness you would go.
You can't possibly ask me to go without having some dinner first. I never go without my dinner. Nobody ever does, except for vegetarians and people like that. Besides, I have just made arrangements with dear Dr Chasuble to be christened under the name of Ernest at 6:45.
My dear fellow, go back. My dear fellow, the sooner you give that up, the better. I myself have made arrangements to be christened by Dr Chasuble at 5:30. Naturally, I'll take the name of Ernest. Gwendolyn would wish it. We can't both be christened Ernest, that would be absurd. Besides, I have a perfect right to be christened if I like. There's no evidence I ever have been christened, and I think it extremely probable I never was, as was Dr Chasuble. It's an entirely different matter in your case. You have been christened already.
Yes, but I haven't been christened for years.
Yes, but you have been christened. That's the important thing.
Exactly. So I know my constitution can stand it. If you are unsure about you ever having been christened, I think you're venturing on the subject now very dangerous. It might make you rather unwell. You mustn't forget that someone very closely connected to you was very nearly carried off in Paris this week by a severe chill.
Yes, but you said a severe chill was not hereditary or anything of that kind.
It used to be, but I dare say it is now. Science is always making wonderful improvements in things.
Well, that's nonsense. You're always talking nonsense.
Jack, you're at the muffins again. I wish you wouldn't. There are only 2 left.
But I hate tea cake.
Then why do you allow tea cake to be served up to your guests? What ideas you have on hospitality?
Algernon, I've already told you to go. I don't want you here. Why won't you go?
I haven't quite finished my tea yet, and there is still 1 muffin left.
The fact that they did not follow us into the house at once as anyone else would have seems to show that they have some sense of shame left.
They've been eating muffins. That looks like repentance.
They don't seem to notice us. Could you cough?
But I haven't got a cough.
They're looking at us. What effrontery.
Oh, they're approaching. That's very forward of them.
Let us preserve a dignified silence.
Certainly, it's the only thing to do now.
This dignified silence seems to produce an unpleasant effect.
Most distasteful.
But we will not be the first ones to speak.
Certainly not.
Mr. Worthing, I have a question to ask you. Much depends on your reply.
Gwendolyn, your common sense is invaluable. Mr. Moncreiff, kindly answer me the following question. Why did you pretend to be my guardian's brother?
In order that I might have a chance of meeting you.
Certainly seems a satisfactory explanation, does it not? Yes, if you believe him.
I don't. But that does not affect the wonderful beauty of his answer.
True. In matters of grave importance, style, not sincerity, is the vital thing. Mr. Worthing, what explanation have you got for pretending to have a brother?
Well,
Was it so that you might have the opportunity of coming into town to see me as often as possible?
Can you doubt it, Miss Fairfax?
I have the gravest doubts upon the subject, but I intend to crush them. Their explanation seems quite satisfactory, especially that of Mr. Worthing's. That to me seems to have the stamp of truth upon it.
I am more than content with what Mr Moncreiff had to say. His voice alone inspires one with absolute credulity.
So you think we should forgive him?
Yes. I mean, no.
True. I had forgotten. There are principles at stake that one cannot surrender. But which one we should follow? It is not a pleasant task.
Couldn't we both speak at the same time?
Excellent idea! I nearly always speak at the same time as others. Will you take the time for me?
Certainly.
Your Christian names are still an insuperable barrier. That is all.
Our Christian names? Is that all? But we are going to be christened this afternoon.
For me? You're prepared to do this terrible thing?
I am.
To please me, you are ready to face this fearful ordeal?
I am.
Oh, what folly is it to speak of the equality of the sexes? In matters of great self-sacrifice, men are infinitely beyond us.
We are.
They have moments of physical courage of which we women know absolutely nothing.
Darling!
Darling. Lady Bracknell.
But I am engaged to be married to Gwendolyn, Lady Bracknell.
You, Sarah, none of the kind. And now as regards Algernon. Algernon.
Yes, Aunt Augusta?
May I inquire, is this the house where your intimate friend Bunbury resides?
Oh, no, Bunbury doesn't live here. Bunbury is somewhere else at present. In fact, Bunbury is dead.
Dead? When did Bunbury die? His death must have been rather sudden.
Oh, I killed Bunbury this afternoon. I mean, Bunbury died this afternoon.
What did he die of?
Oh, he was quite exploded.
Exploded?
Aunt Augusta, I mean that Bunbury was found out. The doctors found out that Bunbury could not live, therefore he died.
He seems to have the greatest of confidence in the opinion of his physicians. Still, I am glad that he made up his mind at the last to some definite course of action, and acted on the proper medical advice. And now that we are rid of this Mr. Bunbury, may I inquire, Mr. Worthing, who this young person is, whose hand my nephew Algernon appears to be holding in a particularly unnecessary manner?
That lady is Miss Cecily Cardew, my ward.
I'm engaged to be married to Cecily, Aunt Augusta.
I beg your pardon?
Mr Moncreiff and I are engaged to be married, Lady Bracknell.
I do not know if there is anything peculiar in the air in this particular part of Herefordshire, but the number of engagements that goes on seems to be considerably above the proper average that statistics have laid
Miss Cecily Cardew is the granddaughter of the late Mr Thomas Cardew. I have also in my possession, you will be pleased to hear, certificates of Miss Cardew's birth, baptism, whooping cough, confirmation, registration, vaccination, and the measles. Both the German and the English variety.
A life filled with incident, I see. Though perhaps somewhat too exciting for a young girl. I myself am not in favour of premature experiences. Ah, Gwendolyn. The time for our departure approaches. Though I suppose I must ask, Mr Worthing, by way of form, is Miss Cardew worth any small fortune?
Oh, she has about £130,000 of funds, that's all. Goodbye, Lady Bracknell, I'm so pleased to have seen you.
A moment, sir. £130,000? And in funds! My, Miss Cardew seems the most attractive young lady now I look at her. Few women of the present day have any really solid qualities. Qualities that last or improve with time. We live, I'm afraid to say, in an age of services. Come here, dear. Pretty child, your dress is sadly simple, and your hair looked almost as if nature had left it. But we can soon amend all that. A thoroughly experienced French maid can produce a really marvellous result in the briefest space of time. I once recommended one to young lady Lancing, and after 3 months, her own husband didn't know her.
And after 6 months, nobody knew.
Turn around, dear. Ah! Sideways, what I want. Yes. Yes! Quite as I expected. There are distinct social possibilities in your profile. The two wants of our age are its want of principle and its want of profile. The chin is a little higher, dear. Style largely depends on the way the chin is worn, and they are worn very high at the present. Algernon! Algernon!
Yes, Aunt Augusta?
Miss Cecily's Cardew offers distinct social possibilities.
Cecily is the dearest, sweetest, prettiest girl in the whole world. I don't care tuppence about social possibilities.
Never speak disrespectfully of society, Algernon. Only people who can't get into it do that. Dear child, of course, you're aware that Algernon has nothing but his debts to depend upon. But I do not approve of mercenary marriages. When I married Lord Bracknell, I had no fortune at all, but I didn't dream in letting that stop me. Well, I suppose I must give my consent.
Thank you, Aunt Augusta.
Cecily, you may kiss me. Thank you, Lady Bracknell. You may call me Aunt Augusta for the future. Thank you, Aunt Augusta. The marriage, I think, had better take place quite soon.
Thank you, Aunt Augusta.
To speak frankly, I am not in favour of long engagements. They give people the opportunity to get to know the other's character, which I think is never advisable.
Beg your pardon for interrupting you, Lady Bracknell. Miss Cardew is my ward, and cannot marry without my consent. That consent I absolutely decline to give.
Upon what grounds, may I ask? Algernon is an extremely, if I may not say ostentatiously, eligible young man.
It pains me very much to have to speak to you frankly about your nephew, Lady Bracknell. But the fact of the matter is that I do not at all approve of his moral character. I suspect him of being untruthful.
Untruthful? My nephew Algernon, impossible. He's an Oxonian.
I'm afraid there can be no possible doubt about the matter. This afternoon, when I was on an important question of romance, Algernon had obtained admission into my house under the false pretense of being my brother. Under this false pretense, he drank, I've just been informed by my butler, eight bottles of Perrier Jouet brew, and one I was specially reserving for myself. Continuing his disgraceful deception, who then alienated the affections of my only ward. He then subsequently stayed for tea and devoured every single muffin. And what makes this conception even more perfectly heartless is that Algernon knew perfectly well that I don't have a brother. I've never had a brother, and I don't have the smallest intention of having a brother in the future, not even of any kind. I told him so yesterday afternoon distinctly to myself.
Mr. Worthing, after careful consideration, I have decided to overlook my nephew's conduct to you.
That is very generous of you, Lady Bracknell. However, my own decision is entirely unalterable. I decline to give my consent.
Come here, dear. Oh. How old are you, child?
Well, I'm really only 18, but I always admit to 20 at evening parties.
You are quite right in making some slight alteration to your age. Indeed, no woman should ever be quite accurate about her age. It looks so calculating. 18, admitting to 20 at evening parties. Well, it will not be long until you are of age and free from the restraints of tutelage. So I really think your guardian's consent is no matter of any importance.
I beg your pardon for interrupting you again, Lady Bracknell. But I think that it is only fair to tell you that under the terms of her grandfather's will, Miss Cardew does not legally come of age until she is 35.
That does not seem a grave objection to me. 35 is a very attractive age. London society is full of women of the highest birth, who of their own free choice have remained 35 for years. Lady Dumbledon is an instancing point. To my knowledge, she's been 35 ever since she arrived at the age of 40. And that was many years ago now. I see no reason why our dear Cecily should not be all the more attractive at the age you propose than she is now. And of course, there will be a large accumulation of property.
Angie, could you wait for me until I was 35?
Of course I could, Cecily. You know I could.
Yes, I felt instinctively. But I'm afraid I couldn't wait all that time. I hate waiting even 5 minutes for anybody. It makes me rather cross. I'm not punctual myself, I know, but I do like punctuality in others. And waiting, even to be married, is quite out of the question.
And what is to be done, Cecily?
I don't know, Mr. Moncreiff.
My dear Mr. Worthing, as Miss Cardew states positively that she cannot wait till she is 35, a remark which I am bound to say seems to show a somewhat impatient nature, I must beg of you to reconsider your decision.
But my dear Lady Bracknell, this decision is entirely in your own hands. The moment you consent to my marriage with Gwendolyn, I will most gladly allow your nephew to form an alliance with my ward.
You must be aware that what you propose is out of the question.
And a passionate celibacy is all that any of us can look forward to.
That is not a destiny I propose for Gwendolyn. Algernon is of course free to choose. Come dear, we have missed 5, if not 6 trains. To miss any more might expose us to comment on the platform.
Everything's quite ready for the christening.
Christenings, sir. Is that not a little premature?
Both these men have expressed interest in immediate baptism.
At their age? The idea is grotesque and irreligious. Algernon, I will not hear of this. I forbid you to be baptized. I will not hear of such excesses. Lord Bracknell would be highly displeased if he learned this was the way in which you wasted your time and money.
Am I to understand that there's been no christenings this evening then?
I don't think that, as things are now, there will be of much practical value to either of us, Dr. Chasuble.
I am grieved to hear you say that, Mr. Worthing. Views such as those, they say the views of Anabaptists, views that I have completely refuted in 4 of my unpublished sermons. But since your The mood seems to be one that is peculiarly secular. I return to the church at once. In fact, I've been informed by the curate that for the last hour and a half, Miss Prism's been waiting for me in the vestry.
Miss Prism? Did I hear you mention a Miss Prism?
Yes, I'm going to meet her now.
Pray, allow me to detain you for a moment. This matter may be of vital importance to myself and Lord Bracknell. Is this Miss Prism a female of repellent aspect, remotely connected with education?
She's the most cultivated of ladies, and a very picture of respectability.
It is obviously the same person. May I inquire what position she holds in your household?
I'm celibate, madam.
Oh!
Miss Prism, Lady Bracknell, has for the last 3 years been Miss Cardew's esteemed governess and valued companion.
In spite of what I hear of her, I must see her at once. Let her be sent for.
She approaches. She's not.
I was told you expected to see me in the vestry, dear Helen. I've been waiting for you there for an hour and 3/4.
Prism. Prism! Prism! Prism, come here, Prism! Prism. Prism? Where is that baby? 28 years ago, you, Prism, left Lord Bracknell's house, number 104 Upper Grosvenor Street, in charge of a perambulator that contained a baby of the male sex. You never returned. A few weeks later, after the elaborate investigations of the Metropolitan Police, the perambulator was discovered standing alone at midnight in a remote corner of Bailey's Quarter. In it contained a manuscript for a 3-volume novel of more than unusually revolting sentimentality, but the baby was not there. Prism, where is that baby?
Lady Bracknell, I must admit, with shame, that I do not know. I only wish I did. The plain facts came to these. On the morning of the day you mention, the morning that's forever branded into my memory, I prepared as usual to take the baby out in its perambulator. I had also with me an old, but capacious handbag, in which I prepared to place a work of fiction that I worked on in a few of my unoccupied hours. In a moment of mental abstraction for which I can never forgive myself, I placed the manuscript in the bassinet and the baby in the handbag.
But where did you deposit the
I
handbag?
must ask him, Mr. Worthing.
Miss Prism, this is of no matter of small importance to me. I insist on knowing where you deposited that handbag that contained that infant.
I placed it in the cloakroom of one of London's larger railway stations.
Which railway station?
Victoria? The Brighton line?
I must retire to my room. Gwendolyn, will you wait for me here?
If you are not too long, I will wait for you all my life.
Uncle Jack seems strangely agitated.
God, it's a very emotional nature. It's stopped.
I hope we come to some conclusion soon.
Miss Prism, is this my handbag? Examine it carefully before you speak. The happiness of more than one life depends on your answer.
Well, it seems to be mine. Yes. The exchange I received for the upsetting of the Gower Street omnibus in younger and happier days. Here in the lining, stain caused by the explosion of temperate beverage and an incident that occurred at Leamington. And here in the lock were my initials. I'd forgotten in an extravagant mood I had been placed there. This bag is undoubtedly mine. Thank you for returning it to me so unexpectedly.
Miss Prism,
So very hard being without all these years.
more is returned to you in that handbag. I was the baby you placed in it.
You?
Yes. Mother!
Mr. Worthing! I
after all, who has the right to cast a stone against one who has suffered? Can't an act of repentance wipe out an act of folly? Why should there be one more for man and another for women? Mother, I forgive you.
Mr. Worthing, there's an error. That lady can tell you who you really are.
Lady Bracknell, a moment. I hate to seem inquisitive, but could you kindly inform me of who I am?
I'm afraid the news I have to give you will not altogether please you. You are the son of my poor sister, Mrs. Moncreiff, and consequently, Algernon's elder brother.
Algy's elder brother. Algy's elder brother. I always knew I had a brother. I always said I had a brother. Cecily, how could you ever have doubted me when I said I had a brother? Dr Chasuble, my unfortunate brother. Miss Prism, my unfortunate brother. Gwendolyn, my unfortunate brother. You will have to treat me with more respect in the future. You have never behaved to a brother like in all of your life.
Not till today, old boy, I admit. I did my best, but I was out of practice.
Mr. Worthing, or Mr. Moncreiff, as I should call you now. I feel it my duty to resign my position at your household, and any inconvenience I may have caused you in your infancy by inadvertently placing you into my handbag, I sincerely apologize.
Miss Prism, I'm sure I was very happy inside of your handbag. And as for your request to leave, I find the idea absurd.
It is my duty to leave, and anyway, I have nothing more to teach my dear sweet Cecily. In the very difficult accomplishment of getting married, my sweet, clever pupil was far too good a teacher. Miss Worthing? Jules?
I must admit that the precepts of the primitive church may have been wrong. Corrupt readings might have crept in. The teacher, I paid for your hand.
And that was down to the Indian climate and marriage and
Things of that sort.
Algy, can't you recollect our father's Christian name?
My dear boy, we were never even on speaking terms. He died before I was a year old.
His name, I suppose, will appear in the army list for the period afterwards.
The general was essentially a man of peace, except in his domestic life. But I have no doubt his name would appear in any military directory.
The army list for the last 40 years, I think. These delightful records will be my constant study.
Lady Bracknell, what do you think this means?
I dare not even suspect, Dr Chasuble. You should know that in families of high importance, strange coincidences are not supposed to occur.
And generals. Malin, Maxburn, Marley, ghastly names they all have. Marksby, Migsby, Mobs, Moncreiff. Lieutenant, 1840. Captain, General, Lieutenant, Colonel, Colonel, Colonel. Christian names. Ernest John. I always told you my name was Ernest. Well, it is Ernest. I mean, it naturally is Ernest.
Yes, I remember now the general's name was Ernest. I knew I had a reason for disliking that name.
My own Ernest! I felt from the beginning that you could have no other name.
Gwendolyn, it is a terrible thing for a man to find out that all his life he's been speaking nothing but the truth. Can you forgive me?
Of course I can, for I fear you are short to change.
Gwendolyn!
The t-shirt.
Roderick at last. No.
Cecily, at last.
Gwendolyn, at last.
My nephew, you appear to be displaying signs of triviality.
On the contrary, Algernon, for the first time in my life, I have now realized the vital importance of being earnest.